Hi again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Next Chapter, a podcast featuring alumni from the College of Fine Arts and Communication here at Western Illinois University. My name is Buzz Hoon. I'm the interim dean for the college. I'm also the host of the podcast. In each episode, we feature an alumnus from one of our programs in the college. Today, I'm talking with Lee Hook, who graduated from WIU in 1967. Is that right, Lee?
Well, actually, I really graduated at the end of the summer of 66.
Okay.
But back then, they didn't do a graduation ceremony yet. So I went out and taught school for a year before I came back and got my degree. I always say that my seniors that first year graduated before I did.
Nice. Well, welcome to the show, Lee. And just I want to make sure that people understand, because we are the College of Fine Arts Communication. We've kind of been cobbled together, and we have lots of different histories. But you, as an undergrad, you were an education major. Is that right?
Well, I started and this is what the degree was then. I started in speech and drama. That was my major. And of course, back then, all we had was, we called it the SAM building. That would have been, I started there in the fall of 1962. And there were 3,600 students at that point.
Oh, wow.
And like I said, we called it the SAM building because it had the big speech, arts, music on that. And all of our classes were in that building. But it did have a really nice theater. So anyway, I started as a speech and drama major because there were no theater majors at that point.
Yeah. Okay.
So I kind of cheated a little bit. I took every theater course I could get, every one that was on the curriculum. And of course, I had to take a few others like phonetics, which I had to take twice. I failed phonetics the first time. We had it in, the building we called the Ministry of Love, the windowless classroom building.
The Lee Hall.
Is that what it is now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem was there was so much ventilation in there, I couldn't hear what was going on. So anyway, so I took all of the drama courses, a few of the speech courses, and then I switched majors because I had taken everything I wanted to take.
You had to graduate.
I didn't want to do debate. I didn't want to do business speaking, and I can't remember, there were some other things you had in order to count it as a major. So I switched to social sciences.
Okay. Well, I didn't want people to think I was trying to steal you from another college. So
no. And so actually my major when I graduated, although I think I was like one course short of having a dual major.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't want to take the debate course. So yeah.
Well, Lee, can you give everybody, let's tell everybody, because we usually like to start as where are you now? What's going on in life? And then we're gonna talk about your origins.
All right. Well, right now, I live on the Outer Banks of Ida. I say it's within spitting distance of the Atlantic Ocean, and it just about is. We live in this little town called Manteo, which sits on Roanoke Island, one of the barrier islands. And the town's about, I think the population of the town is something like maybe 4,000, maybe. I should know that because I worked on the census in 2000. But anyway, so it's a small town, but there's a lot of towns around it, a lot of area, and of course, in the summer, the population increased by about tenfold.
Yeah.
So I teach school right now. I've changed professions many times. I started as a teacher, and I remember when I retired from teaching the first time, my mother always said, well, first of all, she thought I joined the circus when I went into professional theater. That's what she called it. You joined the circus. So, but I have come back to teaching, and that's what she was right. She said, you'll always have teaching to fall back on. And
Nice.
that indeed is true. So at this particular moment, I am teaching full-time as a TA, teacher's assistant, in what we call the occupational courses study room. And that's the room where we have the kids that, the regular classroom doesn't work for them very well. It just, so they take courses with us. I have 5 seniors. I'm teaching financial management right now, one course, and it's computer courses. They can do all of their work, and most of these kids really relate better to the computer than they do anything else. And so I'm monitoring their work and then supplement it in different ways. So that's where I'm at right now, teaching full time. And after I had thought I had retired yet one more time. So.
We're going to talk about that. Let's go back to your humble origins, though, because I'm not even sure. Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
I was born and raised in Monmouth.
Okay.
It's north of Macomb.
Yeah.
And actually, that's one of the reasons I ended up at Western, because, I always classified us as upper lower class, is where we were, the upper edge of the lower class. My dad was a carpenter. My mother worked as a clerk part-time. And I was able to go to Western because we commuted. I'm trying to think, I think there were a total of 8 of us altogether over the 4 years.
Yeah.
There were 2 of us that lasted the full 4 years. And there were other people that fell in and out of that group. And we basically, what it cost me to go to school was $5 a week.
Wow.
$5 a week was my payment for the gas, because I didn't have a car. And the other guys rotated driving. So we drove that 32 miles every day, 5 days a week, for the full year. Of course, back then, we were on the quarter system. I think you guys are on semesters now.
We're
right?
semester, yeah.
Yeah. It was the quarter system. But so basically, I had one scholarship that helped pay for books, and I stayed at home. Just lived at home, and went back and forth for 4 years. And there were, like I said, one other fellow who graduated with me, Terry Bottriff, did the same thing. We rode back and forth, and there were some interesting times on that.
I'm sure there.
Between Monmouth and Macomb, there are a couple of areas that, one is called Dead Man's Curve. Or was called Dead Man's Curve.
It's all 4-lane now. Just to let you know, Lee, we have upgraded our transportation system.
Well, that road at that point, it was all 2-lane.
Mm-hmm.
And in 4 years, I think we had 2 accidents.
Oh, no.
And one of them was involved on Dead Man's Curve. Because, we're driving in all kinds of weather.
Yeah.
Snow, rain, sleet, ice, fog. Fog was absolutely the worst. Sometimes the fog was so thick you could see nothing. I mean, you couldn't see anything.
Well,
so anyway, I came from Monmouth.
Yeah. So what, growing up, you probably were first gen. So it sounds like your dad was a carpenter. So were you the first person to go to college? And what was what was your thinking? Is that something that you had imagined you wanted to do? Well,
actually, I had an older brother who went to Western. He was, I'm trying to think. He graduated. He's 8 years older than I am, so he would have been there in the 50s.
Oh, okay.
He did not graduate. He did. I think he got 2 years, and then he got a job with an architecture firm. He was a draftsman out in Colorado. So. And he got married about the same time, so he took his family and he moved to Colorado, which was nice because I got to go out and visit him. But he was the first. I was the first one that graduated. I have a younger sister that graduated from Monmouth College.
Oh, okay.
At that point, Dad was working on the maintenance force there, so she was able to get in free tuition.
So when you were in high school there in Monmouth, were you a type of person that, I mean, did you have theater? Were you exploring areas that you said, you know what, I kind of like this?
I got bit by the theater bug as a freshman in high school, sitting in the back of the auditorium, Monmouth High School, watching a production of Our Town. And it just, like I said, it bit me. And by the time of course, back then, you only got to do 2 plays, once when you were a junior and one when you were a senior. And so I played Teddy Brewster in Arsenic and Old Lace. Charge the blockhouse. So I got bit early. And that was why when I went to Western, I went in as a speech and drama major. So I had although see, I graduated from high school in 61, and I didn't go to Western until the fall of 62. In between that, I did a semester in engineering at the University of Illinois, and then a semester of selling magazines on the road door to door. And that convinced me I am going back to school and I am going to get a degree because I am not a salesman.
Sometimes you need a redirection in life like that. That's a good point. So when you came back to WIU, Lee, did you feel like, okay, I'm going to do what I'm like? You sound like you got involved right away.
Oh yeah. I think it was the first year. Well, at that point, the speech and theater department was headed up by Dr. G, was his name. And I have no idea what happened to him. I think at one point I heard he moved to Arizona or New Mexico, but I don't know. That's actually, if you have any information about that.
Okay, I'll look it up.
My TD, and that again, he kind of reinforced my theater desire. His name was Al Brooks, and I remember he drove a Porsche.
Really?
Yeah, he was only there. He was there my first 2 years, and after that he went to SUNY of Stonebrook, something like that. One of the New York universities. Anyway, so they brought in another TD, and I didn't have the connection with him. So that was kind of the time I'd already done all the theater courses. So what I did in the first 2 years, I was an actor in Julius Caesar. I was the curly-headed youth who was the herald, which meant that I had to go get a permanent because my hair is not and had never has been curly. So
well, it's a good head of hair, though, Lee.
I was curly-headed youth. I was a stagehand in Bye Bye Birdie. Yes, it was Bye Bye Birdie, because I remember during the intermission of our first performance, Dr. Brooks being on the top of a stepladder, on top of the scaffolding, trying to sew the psych where a pipe had caught it on the way in one of our ships. And he's up there, it's like, holy mackerel. Yeah, so that was, and then I also, I ran the lights for the Skin of Our Teeth. And there's a story there if we got time for it.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd love to hear stories. Go ahead.
All right. At that point, we had a brand new lighting board, which sat just to the right of the proscenium opening. And it was an auto transformer board. I don't know if you know that kind of what it is. Basically, you have 36 levers that all control a different circuit, and then you can lock them in, and you can turn everything on with these two big, huge levers. The guys that were really good could run those two levers, stick their foot out, run another one over here, and maybe an elbow over here and run another lever. Okay, so we're doing Skin of Our Teeth, right? In the second act, third act, there's a hurricane lamp that it's kind of like a traffic light. It has a green light, a yellow light, a red light, and then there's a flashing light that's on top of it. So in the intermission, we always checked, made sure that none of those lamps had burned out or anything. Everything was okay. And it was supposed to start with no lights on it when we brought the lights up on stage. Okay, so lights go out, the house quiets down, and I grab the two big levers and I take them up, bring all the lights up on stage, and I look out there, and there is the hurricane lamp in its full glory. All four lights and the flashing light on top. I had forgotten to unlock it from everything else. And our system of communication then, we didn't have headsets. What we had was a telephone, and the telephone's right there. I mean, It's like right there in front of me. And the light started to pulse. Oh God, I got to answer that. I know it's Dr. Brooks up in the booth, up in the light booth. So I just took it off and I laid it on the floor, and I could hear him perfectly clearly. So
well, it's a learning situation, right?
Yeah, it was a learning situation. And so anyway, the first 2 years I was doing a lot of it, which wasn't terribly easy because, again, I lived 30 miles away.
Yeah.
So coming in for rehearsals and performances and so on, but I did. And then, like I said, we got into the last 2 years, and I, at that point, changed majors and didn't really have a lot of contact with the theater department at that point. I still knew, like I said, Dr. Brooks was gone, and I think there was another professor that I liked. I try to remember his name. I want to say Bostrom or something like that. But anyway.
And where were those? Where were all the theater productions at that time? Do you remember what building?
Oh, they were all right there in the Speech Arts and Music. It was in the newest theater that they had was the one that's right there.
Is it Brown Hall? I mean,
yeah, it was about, what was it, about 300, 400 seat house, something like that. The scene shop, which I loved because I thought it was the greatest thing I've ever seen. The scene shop was directly across the corridor from the back of the stage. So you could roll up one door and then roll up the door into the scene shop and just wheel stuff right out on stage.
Okay. So it's Brown Hall, which is where I'm currently broadcasting from, right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is the stage still there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How many does it see?
That sounds about right. I'm not
about
sure.
400 seem to be. It's it's not an intimate theater. I mean, it's not, like a black box. It's a proscenium theater, but it's a nice size.
Yeah. And we're hoping, Lee, that we can get a new Center for Performing Arts right next to us here that will have new theaters that will allow us to even expand and do more.
North or south of that building?
So it will be south. It'll be just south of it.
South, towards the dormitories.
Towards the dorms. That's right.
Yeah. I remember the dorms well. I remember dating one girl. Well, back then, the girls had hours.
You put that in the notes. Can you tell me what you mean by that?
You wouldn't know what that was. Yeah. All right, okay. Well, first of all, you have to remember, in 1961, that was the first year that the co-eds could go into the library wearing pants. They had to have skirts on before. Yeah. Oh, I mean, it was.
Okay.
And you know what that wind is like on that campus in the winter.
Oh, yeah.
I remember stepping by the, like I said, we called it the windowless classroom building. One time carrying a briefcase, and the wind gust came along, boom, moved me over a full step. I was like, okay, all right. I was lighter then too, of course. Anyway, so hours, what that meant was the girls would have to be in the dormitory, inside the door, and the men couldn't go in that door anyway. They had to be inside the door at a specific time. And it was usually, I'm going to say 11, might have been 12 on the weekends or something, but that's what I meant by hours. They had to be, if they weren't, they were in trouble. I don't know that I ever learned exactly what the trouble was, but they had to be in.
Huh.
I don't know whether they, didn't let them out after that. But that's the thing. That's the biggest thing I remember. Is it Hamilton and Whitten? Is that the name of the two dorms south of the
That Corbin Olson.
Corbin? Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then Washington and Lincoln were on the on other side of Sherman Hall, and
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I got to tell you the one other story about when I was there. We were there, of course, when President Kennedy was assassinated, and at that point, the student union was in the upper story in the gym. It's not Huff Gym. What is the name of what was the old gym?
Well, I'm not sure, but I think from what I heard, it was what's now called the Heating Plant Annex, which is behind Sherman Hall. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't, but what they had was second floor. That was the student union.
Right.
We played pinochle in there for money, and I think there was even 2 bowling lanes, if I remember right.
I've heard that.
That was where everyone hung out between classes. So I was off to a class. I had to be at a class in the SAM building, the Speech, Arts, and Music building. I had to be there. So I'd gotten up from the pinochle game and started to walk out. As I walked out, another student came running in and shouted, "The president's been shot." And we all kind of, oh, yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. And so I went ahead and I walked on out, went across campus. And at that point, I'm walking, across the campus to get to, by the time I got to the Speech, Arts, and Music, there was a sign up, all classes have been canceled. Just in that, 5 to 10 minutes to walk over. And it got really quiet. And I said, oh my God, he was right. He wasn't kidding, and it was just like, that came over the whole campus. You could feel it, Yeah. So Stix Morley was the coach then of the basketball team. I remember that.
Yeah.
And they used to go to Kansas City to the NAIA tournament. We never made the NCAA tournament. Of course, that's back when they only had 16 teams. But I remember Stix would, and he had a couple of pretty good years. We never won the NAIA, but we had some pretty good runs in it, as I recall.
Huh.
Let's see. The other thing I remember about classes was there were, in order to graduate, you had to have certain PE requirements.
Okay.
My PE requirements, I took ballroom dancing.
Nice.
And there was another one that was called ping pong, badminton, and shuffleboard.
Well, back up. Where did you do the ballroom dancing at?
In the gym,
Huh.
on the floor of the gym, and of course I don't remember a single step, but I remember she taught us, the cha-cha, the waltz, the tango.
Okay.
I was never very good at any of it. But the classes I remembered, I took 2 semesters or 2 quarters, was called flicker ball. And I don't know if they still play flicker ball, but what it is, it's played on a soccer field. And you have a basketball backboard in each end of the field that has a hole in it.
Okay.
And you play it with a football and you advance it by passing. You can run sideways and backwards, but you can't run forward. And it was a non-contact sport.
Except I'm sure there was some contact.
And so there was one time, teacher comes up there and he says, all right, he says, how many of you would like 2 free cuts? Oh, wow, what do we have to do? That's great. 2 days we don't have to come out here and chase the field hockey team off the field, because the field hockey team was on there first. So yeah, okay, I'm in. All right, what do we got to do? We had to go to one of the grade schools and play soccer against a Nigerian team. Well, of course, none of us, there were no soccer players in that. And most of us had never played soccer in the first place.
In the mid 60s?
Imagine back in the 60s, nobody played soccer, And here came this Nigerian team. They'd been playing it since they were 3 years old, They wiped us out. I don't think we scored a single goal, but we got 2 free cuts out of it. So
nice.
2 times I didn't have to go to class.
So I feel like I want to tell the rest of your story here, and we're running out of time on things, because we've just now got to WIU. You graduate, as you say, around you get done with classes in 66, but you don't graduate till 67, but you go teach.
Yeah.
So where did you go teach, and how did that start?
Well, we really had a pretty good placement service, I thought, because they were able to, I think I was set up. I had 4 different interviews that I could go to. And one of the places was going to be Colorado, but that was going to be a phone interview. And one was in Bloomington. And the second one that I had was a little town called Hayworth, which is 10 miles south of Bloomington. Farming community, 1,200 people in the town, 200 kids in the high school. So I went there, and I was a little early getting there, and they were having some kind of a PTA potluck or something. So the principal comes and gets me. He said, come on in. He said, this is running a little late, but we're having a nice meal. It's a potluck. Come on in. So I sat with him and his family, and we sat there and chatted, for whatever time that took. And then he said, I don't need to do an interview. He said, you got the job if you want it. Of course, it paid, I want to say $5,200. That was, I remember I cleared $330 a month. Of course, I managed to rent an apartment for $40 a month. So it was, the prices were.
What subject were you teaching, Lee?
I was teaching social sciences.
Okay.
In that school, I taught social sciences, and I mean all the social science. I taught world history. I taught U.S. history. I taught civics. I taught a course called world geography, which I was just barely able to stay ahead of my seniors because I was, and when you're first starting, you don't have any lesson plans to rely on. So you have to make new ones. And and that was, I also, as it is in all small high schools everywhere, any young male also gets drafted into the coaching. So I helped out the football team, and I helped out the basketball team, and so I was there for 3 years. And then a friend of mine who was the head football coach, he got a job down in another little town that was 10 miles away from Decatur called Cerro Gordo. And he comes back and he said, I got this really nice offer down there. He said, and they need someone to teach history and speech. I said, I got that. So I went down and applied, got the job, went down. I was there for 9 years. And basically, I built a theater department at that high school. I mean, when I went in, they had, most high schools, they do a junior play and they do a senior play. Well, I changed those almost immediately. and I essentially built a drama department there.
Nice.
And we ended up, when I left there, we were doing a fall play, we were doing a spring play, we were doing a night of one acts, and we also did a musical there before I left. And it was that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun doing that. But somewhere in there, I had gotten married. Actually, I think I was still at Hayworth at the first school. And if you're in theater, make sure your significant other really understands theater or is also in theater. That's one bit of advice because my first wife did not, and she didn't understand the hours. And at that point, I've taught for 12 years and I've been working 16-hour days, because what I would do is I would go teach, then we'd have basketball, football practice after school, and then I had evening play practice. So I was getting home 10 most evenings, and going to school 8 o'clock next morning. So anyway, we decided that it was better that we not be a couple. So we divorced, and at the same time, I was getting tired of 16-hour days. And a friend of mine had said, at that point, I had been, it's hard to tell what to leave out. About 1975, I think it was 1975, I was always a joiner. So I was a member of the Illinois Theater Association. And we decided as a group, the Illinois Theater Association, to put on what we call the Illinois High School Theater Festival. And we did. We put it on over at Cranard. That was when Cranard was almost brand new. And I was the chair of the first Illinois High School Theater Festival that they had, which I guess, except for COVID, is still going on.
Yeah.
They kind of alternate. I was talking to the guys at U of I, and they're planning on doing it next year, getting it back in together. But they alternate between ISU and U of I. So anyway, in that process, I had met a number of people who were in professional theater. And this one friend of mine says, you need to go to SETC and get a job in professional theater. Well, I'd never even heard of SETC, didn't know what it was, Southeast Theater Conference, what it is. It's where basically they employ and place everybody who is in outdoor theater. All of the outdoor theaters go there and they have auditions and so on. So I went there not knowing what I was getting into, and I was actually offered 2 jobs for the summer. I said, okay. I'm footloose and fancy free at that point. I just gotten divorced. So I packed what I had in my car, left Illinois, went to North Carolina. I'd never been to North Carolina.
That's a big thing. That's a big move in a young person's life. Yeah.
I mean, and I was, well, at this point, I'm 34. And I had, as a result of the divorce, I had a small car. She got the good car, and then I got a secondhand. And so I took what I could pack and had one of those cargo. Sears has a thing that you put on top of the car, and that was what I had. I drove to North Carolina, and
that has to be a little scary, a little exciting, all the above.
It was all of those things. And as you get into, I remember it was Memorial Day weekend as I was driving out there. And so I'm listening to the 500 on the radio. And then all of a sudden I couldn't get it because I was getting whatever NASCAR race they had going on. And I'm in this area. It's east of Raleigh. That's an area, and there's this road. It's pretty straight, 2-lane road. It goes, and I saw these signs that said, do not pick up hitchhikers because there are prison work crews in the area.
Okay.
Chain gangs. I went by one of them. There was a chain gang. I thought, holy mackerel, what am I getting into?
Mm-hmm.
But got there, and it was a wonderful experience. I did the Lost Colony. Met my second wife there. She was a costumer. People that I met there, I got a job in Richmond for the winter, working at what was called then Virginia Museum Theater. Went back to the colony, built all new scenery for them the second year, and went back to Richmond. Did that for 3 years, back and forth. And then the guy who had been my boss in Richmond, he moved to Oregon. So I've got his job now up in Richmond, and I'm the TD for the full year. Did some nice stuff, and it was a good theater to work in. Really a nice place. He calls and he offers me a year-round job. He said, "You can come out here and be my assistant." And he said, "Okay." So now my wife is we're married at this point. I got a second marriage, and she's from North Carolina. Now she'd been to Florida, worked down there a bit, but I said, "Okay, let's go do this." So she tells her mom, "Well, we're just going to go out and see how we like it." I said, "Oh, uh-huh." She said, "We'll probably be there a couple of years." So we were in Oregon for 19 years.
19.
I ran the scene shop for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival for 19 years. And it was really a fascinating experience because they do some marvelous stuff out there. But I learned how to do rep scenery because that's all they did. I became an expert in rep scenery.
Well, what is so admirable about your story is your willingness to adapt, to take on new challenges, sort of in a fearless manner, which is, at some point, people are presented with this, you open the door and say, "Do you want to walk through?" And you have been a person that has said, "Yes,
here I am.
We'll do that."
Well, in connection with that, so we were out there, and at that point we had two young boys. The oldest was 6, the youngest was 3, and the only living grandparent they had was my wife's mother, who lived in Raleigh. And plane fares were expensive even back then. This is like around 2000. Excuse me. And so I was offered an opportunity to come back and work at Alabama Shakespeare Festival, which was right in the heart of where all of family was there, So we packed up and we moved to Montgomery, Alabama, or one of the suburbs of Montgomery, Alabama. But my wife told me at that point. Now, like I said, this is my second wife, but she was theater. She had been a costumer. She worked with volunteer coordinating, and she was theater full time. But she says, as we're doing that move in 2000, she says, "I have one move left in me, and it's going to be to Manteo, North Carolina." Well, when they say it that way, you better listen.
Mm-hmm.
So we stayed in Alabama for 12 years. Got the oldest son graduated from high school. I actually taught at the same high school that he graduated from, because at that point I retired from professional theater and went back into teaching. So,
well, first, let me stop you there, Lee, because do you know what the actual meaning of retirement is? Do I need to send you what a definition of that word?
Evidently not, because I've done it 5 times and it's never stuck. but anyway, so she tells me when we're doing that move, getting packed up, that's because you're packing up 19 years, and she says, I have this one move left in me. It's going to be to Manteo. So you listen to them. So the oldest, he graduates from high school, goes off. In fact, one weekend I took him to college at Memphis College of Art. The next weekend, we put our stuff in a U-Haul and drove to Manteo, North Carolina. I always said I wasn't going to send him the forwarding address, but I did.
He could find you anyway.
So she got to live. She passed away about 8 years ago now. Oh. But she got to live the last 2 years of her life in a place that she loved. So it was worth it. And I didn't have a job when I moved up here. I did end up being production stage manager for the Lost Colony for a couple of summers. And now I'm teaching full time again. So
yeah. And what's great about the connection, the reconnection with WIU is you were at a conference just recently and came up to some folks WIU and introduced yourself, which I'm thankful for, so that we could have this opportunity.
Yeah, it's USITT, United States Institute of Theater Technology. Like I said, I've always been a joiner. So, and that's one of the things for young folks. Join the organizations because there are so many avenues it will open to you. I've been on the conference committee of USITT for 18 years now. I helped them set up the conference and then kind of run things that have to do with the trade show, the expo. But you will make so many connections that way. The other thing is, bit of advice. I was in a workshop. Designer was Fred Volpe, who designed Man in the Moon marigolds on Broadway and was the costume designer for Old Calcutta. I always wondered about that. Fred, what kind of costumes do you have in that? They don't wear any clothes. He said, well, we did some bathrooms. Anyway, so he's doing a workshop. And he said, all right, here's the thing. He said, if you want to be an actor, learn how to wait tables, because you got to have something to do between acting gigs. Now, if you want to be a technician, as long as you do your best and you do good work, you are never going to be out of work. He said, and that has come true.
That's great advice. I tell you, Lee, one of the things that when the folks came back and told me about you, they said, everybody knows Lee. Everybody
like that. How could they miss? Oh, that's the other thing I do now. I'm Santa. I've been doing Santa for about 20 years now.
Well, that's I hope people get an idea that, not only are you a tireless worker, evidently, but, somebody that wants to bring happiness to other people as well, which is, the reaction, I'm sure, of the kids is well worth it.
Oh, yeah. And it's one of the things about at the conference. One of the things I get to do at the conference is working as I do, I get to work with some of the students. We have student helpers, that come and help us. And so I get to work with, a wide variety of them. And that's great. Just to see that spark, let's face it. If you don't have the desire to do theater, it's just another low-paying job.
Yeah.
That's a quote from an artistic director I had. His other quote was, if you can't get drunk in 30 minutes, you're a wimp. So take that for what it's worth.
So sort of to wrap things up here, Lee, it's been such an unbelievable, but a long career from starting here at the SAM building in Macomb, Illinois, to where you are now in North Carolina. Looking back, I just hope people realize that, as you have said, if you have a passion and a love for something and follow that, make it part of your life.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. My dad always said, he said, I don't care what you do. In fact, he was very adamant about that. He said, I'm going to make sure that if you want an education, you can get it. You can learn the books. He said, but whatever you do, make it something that you love doing. And so, so I ended up building scenery. He was a carpenter, so I'm building scenery.
Yeah. So his gift, lives on through you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's been a great discussion, and I thank you for sharing your story, Lee, and hopefully you'll always have some fond memories of WIU and the impact on your life.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
And thanks to all those that are watching on listening to the episode. We will continue to have alumni from our college departments on the podcast, and we hope that you continue to support our departments and the university as well. So until next episode, stay safe, take care, and God bless.